Hello Gents, this is Noah from Noah's Archetypes, and today we'll be looking at the God tier cards that are coming out for the Egyptian God cards, starting with the new Slide for the Sky Dragon support card called Thunder Force Attack. This is a quick play spell card that has the following effect. This card's activation and effect cannot be negated. If you control a monster whose original name is Slide for the Sky Dragon, destroy as many face-up monsters your opponent controls as possible. Then if this card was activated during your main phase, you can draw cards equal to the number of monsters destroyed and sent to your opponent's graveyard by this effect. But you can attack with only one monster this turn. You can only activate one Thunder Force attack per turn. Okay, so I think it's obvious that they want you to attack or Slide for the Sky Dragon this turn if you use this effect. And if you use it during your main phase, you will be getting a lot more cards into your hand. But I love the fact that it's a quick play spell, which means you can use it during any situation, including your battle phase or your opponent's turn. So that makes this card immensely more powerful than, say, if it was a normal spell or a trap card. So I really think that they outdone themselves with this card, and the fact that you can just not respond to it is also amazing, because that is pretty much how the Egyptian God cards work when you summon them. They're supposed to be the most powerful cards in the game anyway, so having them at spell speed 4 is actually a good thing. So I really like this card. The reference, I think, comes from the duel against Strings, or that was controlled by Merrick, in which Merrick had a 5 God combo, in which he kept increasing the attack of Slide for the Sky Dragon. Revival Gem would defend Slide for the Sky Dragon with Gem Defender, and then Infinite Hand would make it so that he doesn't lose any of the cards in his hand. Then what happened was Yugi then took over Revival Gem, and Slifer's second mouth ability kept destroying it, and then it would keep coming back because it is Revival Gem, of course. So then Merrick or Strings would have to keep drawing cards, and then eventually he ran out of cards because there was no more cards to draw, and he lost the duel. It might be a reference to that, and I think that's why you keep drawing cards for every monster you destroy, since that is pretty much what the whole second mouth thing did when Slifer destroyed the Revival Gem. So yeah, I think it's a interesting reference, and it's a really powerful card. I just hope that whatever support they bring for Slifer in the future will be just as powerful as this card. Next up, we have our card supporting Obelisk the Tormentor called Fist of Fate, another quick play spell. And this card also, its activation and effect cannot be negated. If you control a monster whose original name is Obelisk the Tormentor, negate the effects of one effect monster your opponent controls, and if you do, destroy it. And if you do that for the rest of this turn, its effects are negated, as well as the activated effects and effects on the field of monsters with the same original name. Then if this card was activated during your main phase, you can destroy all spell and traps your opponent controls, and you can only activate it once per turn. So in this situation, you are basically negating an opponent's monster. They can't respond to it, so it's just gonna happen. The card gets destroyed, and you basically prevent your opponent from playing that card for the rest of their turn. There aren't that many cards that have such effects, so this is a very powerful effect indeed. And if you use it during your main phase, you will then be able to destroy all your opponent's spell and trap cards. But again, because it's a quick play spell, you could use it in any situation, and that makes this card very, very powerful. I really love how they design these new quick play spell cards for the Egyptian God cards, because they really make the Egyptian God cards very scary all of a sudden. So I think the reference here comes from the duel that Yugi and Kaiba had against the Most Brothers, in which they activated Mirror Force and Obelisk Punch right through the Mirror Force and defeated them. Because in the anime, Mirror Force does nothing to Obelisk. So I think when Obelisk does this attack, he is also destroying your spell and trap cards. I think that is where the reference might come from. So either way, it is a cool reference, and it's just a cool card. It really just makes Obelisk the Tormentor even more powerful than he was before. Next up, we have another quick play spell card and this is, I think, the best card so far, Exchanging Souls. This is a quick play spell card, like I said. It says during the main phase, immediately after this effect resolves, tribute summon one divine beast monster. When you do, you can also tribute monsters your opponent controls as if you control them, but you can only activate one card or effect other than divine beast monsters effects per turn until the end of the next turn. You can only activate one Exchanging Souls per turn. The restrictions might seem a bit heavy, but it is understandable since you were just flattening your opponent's board that they built up, and you are summoning very powerful strong monsters that have new quick play spell cards that are very powerful as well. So they have to kind of, put some restrictions so that you're not overpowering your opponent all day long. So the reference here comes from the duel that Seto Kaiba had with Ishizu. As you can see, the three monsters in the artwork are monsters that were played by Ishizu during that duel. Seto Kaiba used Soul Exchange and then basically tributed the three monsters that she controlled in order to summon Obelisk the Tormentor. And so that is where this reference comes from. So everyone is talking about how it makes it easier to summon Obelisk the Tormentor and Slife the Sky Dragon, and of course it does, but what other people are not looking at is the fact that it also helps the Winged Dragon of Ra. For example, if you had Ancient Chant in the graveyard, you could then banish it and then play this card and then tribute three of your opponent's monsters to summon the Winged Dragon of Ra, and Winged Dragon of Ra will basically have the attack of all three monsters that were tributed combined, and that will make the Winged Dragon of Ra very powerful in just one turn. You wouldn't have to use its effect to take away your own life points, but you could in order to boost it even more to go for a one-shot kill, if that is what you were aiming for. So that is actually very powerful. All three Egyptian gods can really benefit from this. But not only that, the fact is, Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere mode is also a divine beast monster, and usually this card would have to tribute three monsters and then be on that side of the field. But if you play this card, you'd be able to tribute three monsters as if you control them, which means Sphere mode is on your side of the field and you wouldn't have to wait a turn in order to activate its effect. And since this card allows you to activate all divine beast monsters effects at any point, you could still activate this card's effect, bring out Slife the Winged Dragon of Ra with 4000 attack, and then if there's other monsters on the field, you could use the Winged Dragon of Ra's effect to destroy them by paying 1000 life points. Then you'd still have one more card that you could play for that turn that isn't a divine beast card. So I really do think that this makes the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere mode even more powerful, or pretty much all of the cards are very powerful just because of this card. I can't wait to see duels involving all of these new support cards, because I'm sure they're going to be very epic. And then finally, another new card for Pegasus was revealed, and this one is called Golden Idol. As you can see, is as gold as in the Relinquished Fusion card, which I think is very interesting. This card is a dark level 1 spellcaster with 0 attack and 0 defense, and it says once per turn, quick effect, you can look at your opponent's hand. Also, this card's name becomes Thousand Eyes Idol until the end phase. If this card is banished or sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target one effect monster your opponent controls, equip it to one of your relinquished monsters or eyes restrict monsters that cannot be normal summoned or set. While that monster is equipped by this effect, the monster it is equipped to gains attack equal to the equipped monsters. You can only use this effect of Golden Idol once per turn. So, one thing I do love is the fact that it allows you to look at your opponent's hand. Since it does have a lot of Millennium Eyes in its body, basically Pegasus was able to look at the opponent's hand or deck using the Millennium Eye. So that is a cool reference to that. But not only that, it actually changes its name to Thousand Eyes Idol. And Thousand Eyes Idol is just a normal monster, but it was very important when used with Relinquished, so that you could infuse them in order to summon Thousand Eyes Restrict. So the fact that this card changes its name to Thousand Eyes Idol and lets you look at your opponent's hand so that you can know what you're dealing with is very cool. And it obviously can then be used to summon the original Thousand Eyes Restrict. Why would you not love such a effect? The thing was that Thousand Eyes Restrict most of the time gets summoned with instant fusion, but if you were playing a dedicated Eyes Restrict deck, you can now summon that card with ease using any fusion card because you have the materials needed. And you could also use it as ritual material to summon out Relinquished, and its effect would activate equipping a monster your opponent controls onto Relinquished, while Relinquished could still use its effect, which I really love about this card. But not only that, it actually makes Millennium Eyes Restrict even better than it already is, since Millennium Eyes Restrict has an effect that allows you to equip one of your opponent's monsters if it activates an effect. But until your opponent does, this card is basically just sitting on the field doing nothing. So if you fusion summoned Millennium Eyes Restrict using this card, you would be able to equip a monster from your opponent's side of the field onto your Millennium Eyes Restrict. Your opponent would then have to try negate it if possible, and by activating that monster's effect, Millennium Eyes Restrict would then activate and equip that monster to itself. It's basically a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because if you try to negate it, Millennium Eyes Restrict will equip that monster, but if you don't, you lose your monster anyway. So that makes this new card very useful in this deck, and I'd love to see some deals with this card as well. The only problem that this deck currently has is that it's not good at going first, but if they do create a monster that allows you to equip a monster from your opponent's hand, for example, if you are playing first, then this deck will become very, very powerful. But anyway, that's my take on these cards. What do you guys think of these new god level support cards and the new golden idol? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll check you guys in the next video.